US President Donald Trump and China's Xi Jinping have reached an agreement which is expected to ease tensions over US-China trade. The leaders met for much anticipated talks in South Korea. Now, while there was no major breakthrough at the meeting, President Trump says he agreed to reduce tariffs in exchange for concessions from Beijing on a range of issues, including rare earth exports and agricultural imports.
It was a chance to iron out the kinks.
Great pleasure to see you again.
Good to see you again.
After months of a tit-for-tat trade war, US President Donald Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping sat down in South Korea with demands on the table. For the US, that was access to rare earth minerals. China wanted reduced tariffs and a pathway to American-made chips. Both got what they wanted.
I thought it was a great meeting. I think it was a very friendly meeting. It was a good meeting for two very large, powerful countries. And that's the way we should get along with them.
The US has agreed to shave China's overall tariff rate by 10% to 47% in response to stricter Chinese measures to stop the flow of fentanyl to the US. In turn, China will pause export controls on rare earth minerals, crucial to the production of cars, planes, smartphones and weapons.
That whole situation, that roadblock is gone now. There's no roadblock at all on rare earth. That will hopefully disappear from our vocabulary for a little while.
While the one-year agreement is a step in the right direction, a more comprehensive trade deal is yet to be struck. Trump said the deal would be signed, quote, pretty soon, while Xi Jinping said the countries should finalise the next steps as soon as possible.
The two agreed to maintain regular communication. President Trump looks forward to visiting China next year and invited President Xi Jinping to the US.
Two global powers calling a trade truce for now.
And we're going to talk about this with Claus, Soong, an analyst at the Mercator Institute for China Studies, who specialises in China's global strategy. Welcome, Claus. Great to have you here in the studio. President Trump sounding really enthusiastic about his meeting with President Xi. He's talking about an agreement on lower tariffs and about China withdrawing export restrictions on rare earths. Can we say, though, that this is really a trade deal?
I think we're in a pause from both sides about their tension in trade, specifically when President Trump get into office earlier this year. We see after Liberation Day, we see the tariff keep going on, and both sides is adding up from each side, from Beijing side and from the Washington side. So we might see a pause here, but it's not a complete deal. We are seeing that it's on a year review basis. We are seeing that they have a pause, and they will continue to talk about that in the coming years, and to see whether they really abiding with these, and whether we'll see President Trump or the Chinese side have different things to come up with. So they pause on the harbor fees, they pause on the rare earth export, stop buying the soybean. But is it really a deal? I think we don't see that much from the Chinese side yet.
Let's talk about what China is saying. It's promising to control the export of the ingredients that make the drug fentanyl. Mm-hmm. It would lift restrictions on exporting rare earths. Mm-hmm. And as you said, it says it's going to buy more soybeans from the US. If it does all of this, what would China get in return? I
think what China get in return is the reduce of the tariff to, I think, from the 57% to 47% from today, as we just hear from most media reports. But I think China need that. China need to sustain its economy and to maintain a proper external environment to reduce the tension with US, so its economy would not get harder and harder. And I think that is important for China to get in return, to stabilize the relationship, not just economic, but also the overall relationship between US and China in that sense.
So this is a win for China. President Trump likes being the winner, doesn't he? We hear that a lot. So who made more concessions in the end? Who is the winner here?
I think we don't see a clear winner yet on the trade deal per se, or the trade terms per se, not even a deal. But we are seeing that Trump and Xi, well, at least from the Chinese side, they get in a more equal position with the American, right? So in the Beijing's perspective, Beijing has the power or capability that to sit on the same table. And we're seeing that it's Trump chasing Xi. We don't see that coming up that much from the Chinese side talking about their meeting, right? Chinese announce or confirm the meeting very lately in a sense, rather than we seeing that, unlike Trump keeps saying they're meeting, they might be meeting, might be not, right? We're seeing that China commit in a very firm position, a firm position that we are seeing. Of course, American having a very strong demand, as we see in Kuala Lumpur's meeting between the two sides of negotiator. But we are seeing that China take a very stern position and are able to refute compared to other countries which give in to Trump very quickly in the past couple months. China still not yet giving in to Trump's requests on tariff.
So China's in a stronger position. Would you say then that the tariff war between the US and China is over?
I wouldn't say it's completely over, but it's in a pause, right? We are seeing that they are both keeping leverage to each other. They can still applying that. Both China and US need each other in certain degree, and they are essential to each other. No matter it's rare earth from China or chips from US, both sides want stability, but both sides don't want to give in too much. There are still structural issues here between US and China in their competition. We're seeing a pause, but it's not the end of the competition.
Claus Soong, analyst at the Mercator Institute for China Studies. Claus, thank you so much for your analysis.
Thank you.
Let's get more from Clifford, Coonan, my colleague from the business department. Clifford, Trump talking about great enthusiasm in his meeting with President Xi, and then there's also this agreement on lower tariffs, just by 10%, withdrawal of Chinese export restrictions on rare earths. Is this the trade deal that we were talking about?
No, in one word. I think we need to take a breath here. I think it's kind of significant in the way that it's almost like a sentiment indicator. The fact that they're shaking hands, they're smiling, and they're talking to each other and they're coming out with these, these sort of hyperbole about what a great deal it is significant in itself, because so much of this is about performance, about theatre, and about political rather than economic. When you break it down, rare earths, the way China had blocked the sale of rare earths was problematic for a lot of Western companies. So that issue has been resolved by kicking it down the road for another year. And one of the most significant things, I think, is in April, Trump will go to China. And I've always had the feeling about this, that it's going to be about a big event, that he's going to be able to unveil a reset of Chinese-US relations. And I imagine that's what he's thinking about in April. And then that will be followed up by a meeting by Xi going to the US.
While we await April coming around, there has also been some sort of an agreement regarding the illicit trade in fentanyl. What is all that about?
I think this is very much, again, about the messaging. He's thinking about his domestic US audience, and fentanyl and the opioid crisis. These are all things that are major domestic political issues. I think by reducing the tariffs on fentanyl and by showing that they've got the fentanyl situation under control, it's again about the imagery of it.
I think a question that a lot of people have been asking after this meeting between Trump and Xi, both presidents, is who ended up making more concessions? Who won this round of negotiations?
In this one, I think China's economy has been hurting from the restrictions, because it's affecting exports, and that's the only area that's really growing in the Chinese economy at the moment, because it still has a lot of headwinds. So I think in many ways China has had to make concessions. But if you look at the tariffs, for example, though, that they've cut them from 57% to 47%, they're still ridiculously high. So I think China is playing a longer game here, and ultimately it's thinking about self-sufficiency, and that it's also thinking about a reset of global trade with China at the center of it. So I think that this is what's going on there too. So while it's made short-term concessions on the rare earths, in many ways, when you think about it, they just they just took them away so they can put them back in. It's not really, they don't lose anything with it. So I think they played it quite cleverly.
What about the message to the rest of the world? I mean, the trade war and the tariffs, particularly at the center of it, were causing a lot of uncertainty. And we were talking about this earlier as well. Are other countries going to breathe a bit of a sigh of relief? Is there more certainty now, or do things remain uncertain?
Well, I imagine a lot of governments are now trying to unpick what exactly happened just now because there's so many confusing messages there. But I think it maybe will, it's certainly showing that things are moving in a particular direction. So maybe Western governments will breathe a little easier tonight, but there's still a lot to unpick here.
We'll leave it there for the moment. Clifford Coonan from DW Business, thanks so much for breaking that down for us.